Ready.
Well, Kasey, thanks for joining us. This is Kasey Mock with Mock Ranches, founder, broker. Pretty impressive watching you over the years, well over a decade. You originally, one of the things that you did that I thought was pretty out front was basically creating a group within Keller Williams called KW Land. You really gave that lift over a decade ago. Watching that, from afar was pretty impressive. It was very structured. The other things of growing your brokerage, growing your team, what we want to hear is everybody sees the present day of Mock Ranches and man, they represent some cool land. They post great stuff on Instagram. They're great on social media. Kasey's really involved in these national real estate organizations. But as an entrepreneur, we want to start at the beginning and bring what it took to get to this point. And not that you've arrived. Nobody's arrived.
Sure.
As soon as you think you've arrived, you're about to get knocked off. But there is a process, and didn't just happen.
Yeah.
You weren't born on third base. So let us know how it began and what your approach has been.
Well, we certainly haven't made it or arrived yet, right? We've been very blessed and pray every day that we're thankful for what we've got and that we're content with what we've got. But last night, I had dinner at Bohannon's with Dean Saunders and his son and team from Florida. They did $800 million last year, and then Dan Murphy and Seth Kraft, and their goal's $500 million this year. And we do a good percentage of that, but always wanting to make sure we're the smallest fish in the pond, So we're surrounded with other people. And really and truly, that's been a lot of our success, to be honest with you, is continuing to surround ourselves with the right people. Success really for a lot of people is nothing but pure piracy. You find stuff that works that somebody else is doing and see how you can apply that. Then if you surround yourself in the right circles, people are willing to share. I think generally most people want to see other people be successful. One of my coaches a long time ago said, nobody else has to fail in order for me to succeed. There's plenty of, if you look at this room here, there's not enough opportunity for everybody to share equally and hit our goals. There's more than enough opportunity for anybody that's willing to go do it. So we've told this story about how we got started a lot on our podcast and other things. Came from a very, very, very blue collar family. That one thing my parents did, they did a lot of things well, but the main thing is they taught us the value of hard work and family and honesty. And that was the foundation, faith, family, and hard work's foundation. My wife and I got married in college. Got married young, started with nothing. We've lived as we were building our businesses, made tons of sacrifices, and I think that's a big part of it. If you set out to go build a business, businesses early on tend to eat a lot of cash. They take a lot of time, and so a lot of people want to live like the future. They want to live like they're on the mountaintop. They want to live like they're on third base when they start, because there's this perception of, I don't want to be the guy that doesn't have the big house, or don't want to be the guy that doesn't roll up in the new rig, or don't want to be the guy that appears to not have the money. But if you don't have the money, you're never going to have it if you spend it on those things instead of your business. So my wife and I 3 times in our adult year have lived in an RV as we were building our businesses, so we prioritize other stuff. And we're making investments. We'd have a chance to make an investment, and we did some of that. Instead of investing in lifestyle, we invested in assets. And that's paid off very well, and that helps fund your business too. If you have good assets, that helps fund your business. We had really great coaches. Gary Keller coached me for years personally. Now my coach is Abe Shreve out of Utah, but great coaches and great models. So most people want to be told what to do instead of held accountable to actions, around a plan. And there's a really big difference in somebody's going to coach you and inform you, or coach you and teach you,
Yeah. Well, let's go back to the beginning and really, you've said it 3 or 4 times now in just a couple of minutes, is you kept referring to you and your wife. That's a team. And some people don't realize in the world of if you've got your faith and you're grounded in that, and you also have a team member and you and a husband-wife team, which is fairly common in this industry. Yeah. But at the same time, if they're willing to make, I wouldn't even call it a sacrifice. It was just part of the plan.
It's sacrifices.
Yeah,
it is.
But they embrace the hardship because they know what the outcome could be and know what the purpose is. So you can facilitate your family time. You can facilitate vacations.
Yeah.
You can facilitate things that are comforts of life. And you guys have gone down that path. So it's very important having a teammate and a wife that believes in the process.
For sure. My wife's not licensed. She's not a salesperson. She's not a front person. Doesn't care to be a front person.
Right.
She takes care of that. She's our CFO, and she's really good at it. She's very very focused on culture. She's got a lot of discernment with people that we look to get into business with. But she's a phenomenal partner. I think that's probably the single greatest wealth determiner in your life is who you choose to marry, who your spouse is. I think will be your single greatest wealth determiner in your life.
Yeah.
So you spend the most time with. It's who you spend the most money with.
All right.
Yeah, man, I got very blessed, very lucky. Met a young girl that in college that I was a senior in college. I was 22 and she was, or 22, I guess. She was 18 when we met. How'd you like to send your daughter to college in the first semester? She goes, Dad, met the guy I want to marry.
Yeah.
Time to transfer, honey.
Right out of the gate.
Yeah.
Well, that's good. The other thing that I wanted to talk about was mentors. A lot of people run as this lone wolf. It's very easy to slip into that in this brokerage world because you go out on your own and you're also the distributed team.
Yeah.
A lot of times in order to do farm and ranch, you're hundreds of miles away from your teammate, right? And so you operate out of home office or you rent a place in town, things like that. That's a challenge in and of itself. And land brokers have been doing distributed teams long before software guys were doing it. So talk a little bit about your mentors and running a distributed team.
When I was first hired at Keller Williams Realty International, this would have been 2013, I believe. Mary Tennant brought me in. Mary was the president of Keller Williams Realty International. Mary and Mark Willis at that time were Gary Keller's leadership team. They were responsible for, 100,000 agents worth of growth. Took that company from a regional company to the largest real estate company in the world. And when Mary brought me in and hired me as the director of KW Farm and Ranch, she said, Kasey, you'll fail at leadership if you don't learn to win through people. If you don't learn to succeed through people, you'll fail at leadership. And so taking that lesson, it took me years to fully learn that. But how that's played out, the biggest thing in our life is when my wife and I chose to move to Stephenville almost 3 years ago now. We'd prayed for a long time about where to raise our kids, and we were trying to not say, hey, God, we're moving here. Would you bless our plans? We were trying to say, hey, God, would you reveal your plan to us, and doing our best to be faithful there. He was very faithful to lead us to Stephenville, which we love that community.
Cowboy capital?
Rodeo capital of the world, you know. But in doing that, we were separating from our leadership team, separating from our management team, separating from most of our agents, and moving to what was not our top market. And so I'd grown up in Hays County, lived there my whole life except for college. And we lived in between Dripping Springs and Wimberley, had a beautiful place. We had a tremendous amount of market share there. And largely because we were there. We were plugged into everything. And we were walking away from all that. And so professionally, it wasn't a start over because we had a great team. We had, 15 agents at that time. Now we're up to 20. We had a really good leadership team. Max Ramsey, Trisha Ramsey, my wife, a good VA and support staff. But all of a sudden, it's a lot easier to manage and lead people. Well, you can't manage people from afar. And I believe very few people want to manage. If you're having to manage somebody, you're probably in business with the wrong person. But it's really hard to lead and inspire people from a distance. And so go back to 2013 when Mary Tennant said, you'll fail at leadership if you don't learn to succeed and win through people. That's how that plays out, is trying to empower your people, not tell them what to do. And man, just continually, the Realtors Land Institute and RLI has been huge for us. Men like Dan Murphy and Dean Saunders and Bob Turner, so many that I couldn't name them. I'm leaving so many off. It's embarrassing, but so many men that have come alongside us professionally, poured into us. Great coaches, Abe Shreve, and so many that have coached us over the years. Gary Keller's been a tremendous blessing to my family. Just the amount of time he spent with us. We've done tens and tens. Probably close to $100 million worth of business just for him, And that's been a huge blessing. But, Gary told me one time too, when I was looking to get into real estate, he and I were in a deer blind in Dripping Springs at his ranch. And I'd been in the hunting business and outdoor business, wildlife management business, agriculture. That's all I'd done is landowner services, and things my whole career. And I told Gary one time, and would have been early 2013 or late 12, told him I wanted to get my real estate license and start brokering ranches, because we were getting brought into that conversation a lot, and weren't really getting paid on it. But I felt like at that time we were the one that was the expert in the ranch asset, and not to taking them anything away from the brokers, but that was the case a lot. Our clients bring us in, looking at this ranch, want you to tell us really what it is, what it can be, how we can manage it, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And so I told Gary that we want to do that, and he said, "Good, I've been waiting for you to say that." And I said, "How do I do that?" He looked at me and he said, he said, "I'll coach you, but if I got to give you the answers, you're the wrong guy." And so, you learn that too. Like, don't go ask people, don't go say, "Hey, can I pick your brain?" What you're asking is, you're asking me to just tell you what it's taken me a long time to learn.
Yes.
And I'm usually willing to do that, but I'd rather somebody come say, "Hey, I've been thinking about this. Here's my plan. What do you think about this plan? Here's the actions I've taken, the results they produced." And
yeah,
I
had my boys. I got 3 boys. They're all in their 20s now, early 20s. And I tell them, I was like, if you're going to go to your superior, do not go to them with an idea. That's the worst thing you can do.
Yeah.
If you got an idea, formulate the plan. Here's the steps I want to do to execute it. I've thought it out, and then present that plan on one piece of paper, and don't go over one piece of paper.
Yeah.
That gets you a lot more respect. And so
It does.
It also empowers them as well. Sometimes I'll sit and watch my boys flounder over a task or a project. And it could be something simple on the ranch where they just can't figure out some way to do something. But it's better for them to fail, which is how you learn, and then figure it out, or them come to you with questions that actually are more meaningful, as opposed to, how do I do this?
Yeah, well, nothing good watching your boys fail. I mean, that's where we grow, is in failure. Nothing good grows on the mountaintops.
Yeah.
Think about it. You lived on a mountaintop, you'd starve to death. Nothing good grows up there.
Mm-hmm.
There's no protein grows up there. There's no fiber grows up there.
It's a good metaphor.
Nothing good grows on the mountaintop.
Yeah.
The things that you and I thrive in grow in the valleys. And that's the same as in our business. Our businesses grow in the valleys. They grow when things are tough. They grow when we're having to make sacrifices. They grow when we're having to make investments. They grow when we have personnel issues and we learn from that. They grow when the market shifts. Businesses don't grow in the COVID market. Businesses don't grow in the Q2, 3, 4 of 2020, 2021, and Q1 and 2 of 2022. Businesses don't grow there. Your revenue might grow. Mm-hmm. Revenue grows. Yeah. Praise the Lord for that, man. Revenue grows.
Revenue solves everything.
But your business strength doesn't grow in those markets.
Yeah.
No, businesses grow in a recession when you're tasked to go survive, take territory, be really sharp at your trade, get good, get coached, get informed, improve, provide value to your customers. And that's market share. That if you study business, if you take market share in a recession, you very rarely, over the history of the time, very rarely is that market share ever given back.
Yeah.
But if you lose it, very rarely is it ever gained back, because there's only a certain amount of market share to be had in any business. You talked about mentorship. I think I'll tell you how much I value it is or appreciate it, because I really do believe that our success is based on coaching, mentorship, good models, people that were willing to walk alongside us and coach us and invest time into us. I lead a free land broker mastermind now. Anybody in this room, if 50% of their revenue in their business or more is land sales, it's free to them to get on once a month, and we'll discuss business models and have a structured conversation around it, because I'm appreciative of what I was taught. And I think as an industry, if we continue to get better, we stick around. It's an industry, if we don't evolve, we don't exist. And I would love to still be doing this 20, 30 years from now, which means our industry has to be here. It's going to look different. But as an industry, we have to continue to get better. And
well, I've just noticed, I've been in and around the land business for a decade, a little over a decade now, and where it was when I entered the market here and where it is now, this the whole complexion of this place has changed.
It's very different.
And that's a credit to guys like you and Dan and Dean Saunders and so on. There's a lot more people, but all boats have rised.
Yeah.
And so that's been great. But what I'm hearing from your story, just to wrap up, is there has been a methodical approach to your day-to-day routine.
Very.
You've had some, I'll call them strategic decisions, but who you married, who were your mentors, those were choices that you made. But at the same time, you had the character and the drive that those other folks notice is like, that guy's going to win someday, and I want to help him get there. And so I just see this series of events, and then some of it's luck. It has to be. So you've had a few lucky breaks along the way, but it tends to happen to the Chip Bubellas of the world and the Kasey Mocks of the world because they're applying themselves.
Yeah.
You know?
Preparation meets opportunity. A lot of people call that luck, blessing, divine intervention, whatever you call it. But I think we're rewarded for our efforts in a lot of ways. Let's say that. I think we're rewarded. Seth Kraft, last night at dinner, Seth said, if you want to be rewarded in public, you have to practice excellence in private.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think when nobody's looking, that's when the champions are made.
Start to separate themselves.
Who's refining their craft when nobody's looking? Who's working hard to build their business when nobody's looking? We don't do things perfectly always, but we do try to. We had a great team. We have a really high standard for who's on it, standard of excellence, standard of behavior, standard of context, standard of production, standard of training. There's a lot of brokers. There's a lot of ways to be in business. We're not the fit for everybody. We have a very, very high standard for who works with us because that's an extension of our brand to our clients. We expect a certain level of service, a certain dedication to excellence, certain dedication to training, certain dedication to knowledge that's required to deliver the service that we promise to our clients, and that we train every single day on our team. Mm-hmm. So, a lot of brokers train once a month. Some don't train that often with their agents. We train every day with our agents. Every morning it starts with training, except Thursdays is team Bible study. And then once a month we get together for at least a day for full training. But every day is focused training with the agents so that they launch better every day, sharper every day, more context every day. They're looking at more deals every day. And we think that's a really strong competitive edge that our agents are able to extend to our clients.
I think that's probably compounding now based on what we see. So it's cool that you've executed on this business plan, in a totality, but very impressive. I wanted to get you on today to tell your story
Appreciate
a bit. And I know you've already told it several other times, but thank you for all your work with Realtors Land Institute and also here at the Texas Outlook Land Market event. I love your trainings, and I love what you're doing with your team, and I can't wait to see what the next decade holds.
Appreciate you having me on, Chad.
All right, Kasey.
See you, buddy.